Hey yo, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up? So after playing through DLC 6, a year later for my second round, I had a different experience than I did with the first one. Even though I stand by many things that I said during my first review of the DLC 6, many of those things haven't changed, but many of those things did change. Now I have to say this, I did play this playthrough with no side missions or sub stories. I just did the story, right? I wanted to stay as pure and raw to the original content as possible without all the fillers and interruptions and this, that, and the other. And I think that's something that really brings me a greater experience when it comes down to Kakarot. And with that being said, this is my re-review of DLC 6, Goku's Next Journey. So I still remember watching this on television in my younger teenage years, and that same feeling I had then was something that was recreated by the nostalgia of this DLC. So that's something that they actually did succeed on. There's been quite a bit of time that has passed since the Buu arc, and at this point, I'm just kind of wondering like how strong everyone is. We know Goku has been training, but we don't really get much updates on anyone else. Has Vegeta continued his training, or has he just basically succumbed to the fact that Goku is better and he no longer needs to train? The whole gang has gotten older apart from the Saiyans and probably Piccolo because of, they're fighting and their bloodline and things of that sort. But for the most part, man, things were redesigned, at least on a character level. The things that began to disappoint me was when I went out to explore that I didn't get that change of the environment, right? The change of the terrain, or it's been some years now, some things should have changed, and that was an area that was disappointing for me in this DLC. But apart from that, man, I think that if you follow the story and you play this game and you're a fan of Dragon Ball, especially of this arc itself, just from the nostalgia feel alone, right, it's going to satisfy. Going up against Goten was one that I thought was kind of just like, oh man, this is really like bad. It should have been better because I made a video speaking about the limitation from ground mechanics, and I have to speak about the limitations of ground mechanics, right? Because they are limited, but the Goku that we get on the ground is completely different for the most part from the Goku that we get in the air. I think he's more of a sparring Goku than a serious Goku, but nonetheless, man, the combos are changed, the moves are a little bit recycled and modified a bit or whatever, but it's enough that it's changed up that gives you a different experience. So fighting Goten without any practice, training, or trying to level up has changed my opinion about the battle between them two, and it was one that was actually enjoyable rather than it being like, hey, this is boring, this is just lame, it could have been better. I think Goten was a pretty solid character, even though he was only a ground fighter in this arc. So Goten had full combos, he had a full move list and things that he can do. So with that being said, Goten was a complete character. It was a battle that was interesting to me, and as you can see from the health bars, it was one that was more interesting as well. I tried to take him lightly and kind of just like spar fight with him, but he was doing too much damage, so I really had to take this guy serious in order to defeat him. Now, when it comes down to the world map, there's very few and available areas that were once there like in the base game. And I understand it, right? Because the End of Z arc doesn't really cover much, so you wouldn't really have access to all the other ones. I just would have liked to have seen like maybe some new areas just for exploring purposes. So once you arrive at the World Tournament area, it's a pretty populated area, really bringing in the atmosphere of the whole martial arts tournament. But once you begin to explore on your own, you realize that it's not as populated as you thought, and it's kind of dry, but nonetheless, man, it still does a really good job of setting the tone. One other thing that I did grow to appreciate was Pan. And even though Pan was a strong fighter at a young age, they didn't take away or subtract anything about her being a kid. Like this scene right here, I just loved it. It just showed her being in a playful state, still being innocent and things of that sort. And I thought that was something that they should have focused on like they did to really kind of draw her character and who she was. So screenshot this moment right here. Goku's not in his turtle hermit gear, Vegeta's not in his battle armor or training suit, Trunks is in casual clothes, and Bulma has just grown to get older. And you have two kids here, right? I think Pan being here kind of demonstrates and symbolizes the time of peace that they were living in. One thing that I can say for sure that I know that no one can deny is that this DLC is all about progression. It's about growth and it's about maturity. It's about character development. And this is something that we definitely see in this arc. And I think that's why it hits home for me so much, from seeing Goten as a little kid and Trunks as a little kid. Before Pan even came into the situation, Goku as a struggling fighter to be one of the greatest martial artists that ever lived. Vegeta being such a ruthless killer to a family man who cares about his wife and children. This is all evolution. This is them evolving into something better. Now, I know in my previous video where I mentioned that playing with Pan was pretty boring. No one really wanted her. And I agree with the second part. Nobody wanted her, but playing with her wasn't boring. Understanding what Pan really brought to this arc, which was basically like the total embodiment of what peace was for these guys who were warriors and who were known to always basically be caught up in some type of chaos. To have this type of access to Pan and more so of a downplay of all of the high intensity fighting and this, that, and the other, it was just something to just enjoy, right? It kind of mixed it up a bit. And I really had a good time playing with her from the beginning of the battle all the way to the end of the battle. And like I said before, I didn't do any side missions, so playing against Wild Tiger, he actually was a equal opponent for me as far as a challenge. So he wasn't easy as he was, you know, seen in the original anime where he was like, you know, one hit, but or at least a one hit, you know, takedown or a knockout rather. But for this one, the guy put up a pretty decent challenge all the way to the end of the fight, and I actually enjoyed it. Now this brings us to the most exciting part of the DLC that I was really looking forward to. Now I know many people were excited about the Vegeta versus Goku one, and that one got high praises, but I was more excited for this one on my second go round. Mainly being because if other people were more challenging this time around, then Oob had to be more challenging as well. So I was excited to get to this point, and boy was I right. This guy definitely proved to be every bit of a challenge I thought he would be. Now, of course, when you first start off, you're just playing around, right? It's kind of like you warming them up, trying to get them loose. So the AI really isn't fighting hard at all. But once this guy warms up and he gets moving, the same way that it was in a cutscene where they was really banging it out was how I felt when I was in control. When I was trying to move and teleport and Oob was doing the same thing. The thing I loved about this battle the most was that Oob is a melee fighter, right? Because he doesn't know how to use key waves compared to fighting Vegeta where he's a key spammer. Oob is a melee spammer, and I love that. So you couldn't stay close to the guy for too long without having to back up and make some type of adjustments to dodge and get out of the way from his moves without, you know, before taking damage. And it just made it even better as the battle intensified. One other thing that I like, which took place in the Pan versus Wild Tiger battle and also in the Goku versus Oob battle, was the conversations that they were having, where the Goku was having it with himself.
He's so nervous.
Or Pan was having it with Wild Tiger, like when he realized that she wasn't a joke and he had to take her serious. You see his tone begin to change.
How is this possible? This is absolutely stupid!
Did you just call me stupid?
And the same thing with like Goku and Oob, where Goku begins to offend Oob's family and Oob is like, what did you say? And he begins to get upset and angry. Like, these are little small, you know, additions that were thrown in there that just made it come to life even more for me. And then after all of that, we went straight into the cutscene, where that was even better to basically put a topper on a fight in which I just had. Perfect battle for me. And this part of the DLC needs no introduction, A Tale of Two Saiyans. This is where Goku ultimately fights Vegeta in their evenly match, but before that, Goku goes through some mind training to fight against previous foes and see how he matches up to them and things of that sort to get ready for his battle against Vegeta. Now, I've already spoke heavily about the battle between Goku and Vegeta, and every other reviewer or comments that I've read pertaining to that battle has all received praises, so I don't need to go into much detail about that. It was only one negative thing that somebody had to say, but they never said they didn't like it. They just simply said that Vegeta was a key spammer. Other than that, it was perfectly fine. This was a perfect way to end out the DLC. So with that being said, I think this was a wonderful DLC, even though it was short on both ends as far as the original end of Z Arc and the Tale of Two Sands, but putting them together with everything that it had to offer, I think it was pretty good, especially for the price point of around, like, I think it was $12 or $13.99. So I would give it a shot if it was something you were interested in 2025. So with that being said, it's your boy, oh no, not another reviewer, and I'm out.